Hello there, and welcome to the Impact Zone podcast. We are back again to talk more TNA wrestling shenanigans. Something that I've talked about here and there is the idea of Nick Nemeth turning heel. So this is a question that I kind of wanted to pose. Should Nick Nemeth turn heel? And at a certain point, I feel like the answer is yes. Because I do feel like it does depend on what they're going to do going forward with the roster. But with the current roster, it really feels like they need more heels. They need a lot more heels. They need heels for everyone to fight. They need heels for Henry to fight. They need heels for Santana to fight. They need like a bunch of heels. They need heels if friggin' Nick Nemeth's gonna stay a babyface, which maybe he could. You could make the argument that he could. I certainly feel, well, Ryan Nemeth is pretty much a heel as it is, but I do feel like he could betray his brother. It's one of those things that's sort of been kind of hinted at in the story, and I think it would be kind of interesting to see the Nemeth feud in some ways, though I know some people probably aren't as into that as, these other things or whatnot's going on. But still, I do feel like that is something, potentially that could work out. And look, I said before, like, I had the distinct feeling when we're going into Genesis, I felt like, that Frankie Kazarian was probably going to cash in and win the title. I still feel like that could be a possibility. But it's just when you this is one of the things, this is a back yourself into the corner type moment, and they're having a promo this week between Hendry and Nemeth. So, and this is their second match. Again, with a few matches here and there, I've said that this match might need a stipulation, or this match might need a stipulation. Like I said that with Santana and Alexander, and that one might get a stipulation as well. We do have the distinct feeling that, Alexander's leaving, so, like pink slip match or loser leaves town match or whatever. That type of thing seems like it's probably going to be up there with one of the possible stipulations. I do feel like Jordan Grace and Tessa probably needs a stipulation, though again, like I said, maybe you could cheese it by, them, getting counted out, or them getting too violent and Santino coming down and saying, hey, we've got to put this to bed, and this is now no DQ, and, pinfalls count anywhere in the building. So it's, but then again, why wait to the show, or why almost disappoint people, or don't take the rug out from under them? Just say it's going to be a hardcore style match anyway to start with, because that's probably the expectation of what people are going to do. But then again, it's like, if you have two matches that are like loser leaves town as well, it's like, that's kind of a little bit awkward. But still, I still feel like that stipulation could be applied as well here. But yeah, whatever. And I do 100% feel like Nick Nemeth versus Hendry needs a stipulation. And there might be, and I'm pretty sure there would be, because this was taped weeks and probably months ago, a leak out there somewhere of somebody who has said, what the match stipulation is going to be. But that doesn't stop me, because I don't know what it is, from trying to say, well, what do I think it should be, or what do I think would make some amount of sense, or whatever. Now, the thing about having a stipulation on this match is, though we want to quote-unquote reduce interference in this match in some form, in some fashion, we actually also kind of need that interference in some form, in some fashion, because that is what drives the story. What is the story? The story is Joe Hendry finishing the story, so to speak. That is our story right here, right now. He is on this path to finish his story of becoming the TNA World Champion. And that is the angle that we have to keep going with. I know that some people were saying, they should have just pulled the trigger when, like, months and months ago. They didn't pull the trigger on Cody Rhodes, and a lot of times this is the sort of thing that does happen. It's not just a TNA thing or just that one time in WWE or whatever it is. When Daniel Bryan won the title, I think it was from John Cena. I think that was the first time that he won the title. Oh no, he won the title. He won the world title before that, didn't he? But I think that was the first time that he won the WWE title. He subsequently lost it to Orton. We know this. And then he subsequently had a bunch of screwy matches along the way with Orton. Actually, did he? I think they actually just said, I think he only had like one match with Orton. And I don't even remember if it was like on TV or what it was. Like, I don't remember. Like, this is many years ago. And they just were like, we're going to move on to a rematch between Cena and Orton, like, for the title. And it was a ladder match, I'm pretty sure, to unify the titles or something and all this and whatnot. So they went on to move on to do that. They just basically were like, we're going to ignore that Daniel Bryan ever, won the title, and we're just going to move on to a feud between Orton and Cena. Not that, and at that time they had wrestled quite a lot, but they'd never had a ladder match. It had been a few years since they'd had a match, and like things had changed a little bit, at least for Orton's sake. John Cena hadn't changed; he just changed the color of his shirt or whatever. But yeah, like, again, that's one of those things. I get why people were sick of it, because people wanted something else, but if it was just a filler match to say, this is not for Cena, we don't care, like, this is just for a big money pay-per-view, we're trying to draw people in, like, if you look at it that way, obviously that's what they're doing. They're not just saying we don't care about Daniel Bryan. Well, they were, but the idea there is, in some sense, to try to get the fans behind Daniel Bryan even more, in some sense. Like, that wasn't their actual plan, because Vince McMahon didn't really get it. But again, that if you were looking at that kind of booking, that's the kind of booking that should actually be done. You should move on to something else, because, hey, we want the fans to engage with this person so that it feels like this person, and it's not just saying, Orton had a 2-week run or whatever it was. The babyface can have a 2-week run or a 2-minute run or whatever it is, because that's when the fans go, you can't do that to our poor babyface. Look at our poor babyface. They just won the title and they were just celebrating with it, and they didn't even get to really defend it, and now you've run off with it. We want justice. We want to see our guy back at the top. That's the best thing to do, is to always take it off the babyface as quickly as you possibly can, usually. Not exactly like, as fast as what you can, but usually as quick as what you can. You don't want to have these babyfaces running around for too long, because it gets very, very stale. I think Nick Nemeth has become very, very stale. That's why I'm thinking, hey, there's that potential to turn him heel. He's a very good heel. Whether he wants to do that or not is up to him. I don't know whether he wants to do that. But again, the thing is about whether he wants to do it or whether he doesn't want to do it is irrelevant. Because the thing is, if it will make money at the end of the day, then that is what you should do. You should say, well, this is here to make some money. This is here to draw the people in. I'm an established guy. There's a bunch of baby faces here. I need to put some of these guys over so that, hey, they can get that rub. They can take, this company to the next level in the next couple of years or whatever it is. And, I'm not going to be here forever, whatever else. So there's a lot of upsides to turning him heel, I think. I think Ryan Nemeth is an obvious heel. I feel like it's really tough because, again, I feel like I could see, again, almost that you have this feud with Nick Nemeth and Ryan Nemeth, and then Ryan Nemeth somehow wins. Especially, like, if he's reveals himself as, like, being in control of JBL this whole time or whatever else it is, and he's basically betrayed his brother, and he was going to try to beat him for the title or whatever it was, but now things have changed and whatever else, and he couldn't, like, he just didn't get there in time to stop Kaz or whatever it was, I don't know, or there was too much chaos and whatnot, or whatever it was, or Joe Hendry got in the way and all of this other stuff. I don't know. So again, it's really tough because, again, it's like, well, that classic, brother versus brother storyline, it's only sort of worked out when Brett and Owen wrestled each other. Like Matt and Jeff didn't really do it very well the time that they decided to do it against each other. I guess it worked well when The Undertaker first came, but they're not real brothers. I guess, like, Matt and Jeff versus each other when with the Broken Universe stuff, that worked because TNA went for, the walls effectively with that storyline and that idea and that concept. They really let Matt and Jeff kind of, go where they needed to go and do what they needed to do and sort of take it to the next level and, kept it going, not just it was all about the jealousy and it was all about the lack of success for Matt sort of thing. But I don't know. It's tough because, again, what's next? Like, that's the thing. Like, we have the distinct feeling that now Nick Nemeth is staying with the company at least for probably at least 6 months, maybe a year even, at least. Like, that's what we were assuming that his deal seemed to be last time, based on just, the fact that, he stayed for just about a year. Maybe he isn't, maybe he is, who knows? Maybe those details are out there, but I haven't seen them or whatever, but yeah, like, again, it's one of those things. I don't think the 100% details are out there. Maybe they are and I'm wrong, but whatever. It doesn't matter. Like, if you look at that roster and you look at, like, if you're going to bring in a bunch of heels, okay, alright, I can see that you won't turn Nick heel because then you'll have him to fight his brother Ryan. That seems like that could happen either way. Actually, it couldn't happen either way, but again, that could happen in some form, in some fashion. Maybe you could get Nick to turn heel later down the line. Maybe. I don't know. It's sort of tough to say because it's like, maybe, like, I don't know. It's tough for me to think that you would turn somebody heel on somebody like Ryan Nemeth, who's already sort of got a lot of heat. That doesn't seem to work for me. Like, I don't think that many people are sympathetic to Ryan Nemeth. I don't think that it would work as a heel turn if Ryan Nemeth was, if Nick Nemeth turned on Ryan effectively or something like that. I think, like, again, this is the thing about saying this is a young guy in Ryan Nemeth. He I don't want to say Nick Nemeth is past it. He's certainly not. But again, you've got to put that investment in these young guys. You've got to give these young guys those boots effectively, or those buffs, or those pushes, and those big wins for them to, feel like, well, what are we going to do with you? We've got to do something with you. We can't just, like, if we're sitting here and Santana has beaten Josh Alexander, which I think that he will, it's like, okay, well, what's he going to do after that? Again, you've got to have all these people for him to fight. You've got to have people for Joe Hendry to fight, even if he, like, as I said, I don't think that he's going to win, but it's like, well, what's he going to do after this? He's got to be chasing Kaz, but he's got to have other obstacles in his way. You've got to debut some people for him to fight that won't get out of his way unless they fight him, like type thing. So again, like almost like Josh Alexander, it's like painting a very similar picture to that a few years ago when Moose beat Josh for the title, and then it was like, well, we've got to find opponents for Josh, because if we don't, then it's like, well, what are we doing with him? We need to give him things to do, things to fight against, and all of that. That's how it goes. But again, this is where we're at, where we're going, what we're doing. Hopefully they will bring in a bunch of heels. And I mean a bunch of heels, not just like 2. I mean like at least more than 3 or 4. Like, you need several heels at least to fill up your divisions again, especially the main event or the semi-main event divisions. That whole 23 thing, that's obviously happening on the 23rd. So we don't know what that is. That seems like a tag team, at least from the fact that it's only been pitched as to doing stuff with Callahan and PCO, who are a tag team. So it seems like it's going into that tag team realm. If they teased it somewhere else, then it would feel like, well, at least it's not just the tag team thing. It may be a faction. I don't know. You could think it'd be a faction, possibly, potentially. But, like, I don't know. Again, it's tough to say. Not impossible. But, you've really got to think, like, where are we going to put, like, another faction? Because you've already got the system. I know, like, Josh Alexander's probably leaving, so the Northern Armory's probably splitting up. I mean, I know that Rich Swann has gone from the roster, so I guess First Class is now just a tag team and no longer a faction. So I guess you could have room for another faction in the company or whatever. But it's tough to let that sort of simmer while you've got so many people here, so many people there. It sucks that, again, that's the problem. It's like all these injuries have happened to all these people, because if they actually had Hammerstone there, they probably would have been in a better position. They probably could have done more things with some of these other people. And had different feuds and different matches and whatnot. Maybe like they would have chosen to do the same matches. I don't know, but at least like you could start saying, well, let's go from here and let's do something else. Because like if there are a few heels here and there, but they're just not legitimized enough, or they're not featured enough, I suppose, to really sort of keep that level of seemingly like being on the, and not really feuding with a lot of the other people that are on the roster. Like, what's Dango doing? He's here sometimes and he's kind of not here sometimes. So like, we've got to either have him, feuding with Santana. Well, he's just feuded with Santana, but he's got to be feuding with someone. Like, and yes, I guess you're kind of feuded with Leon Slater or something like that. I don't know. Again, like, he's not really an X Division guy, so I don't really see that he like fits into that space. I kind of want Mustafa Ali back. That's one. I feel like Mustafa Ali could come back. He's the only person that I actually know. Like, I don't know a lot of the people that are on the not in active roster, but the free agent market, so to speak, as far as like who they could pick up. There's certainly a couple like Baron Corbin, but I know some people are like, oh, don't bring in, Baron Corbin or whatever. I think bringing in Corbin would be fine as long as they bring him in as a heel, or quickly turn him heel or something. He could come in as part of this new faction or part of the 23 thing, or maybe whatever, something else. But again, even saying so, it's like, well, the women's division really doesn't have enough like heels either, at least strong heels. Like they just wrecked Savannah Evans there the other week, and Tasha Steele's been pretty wrecked. Alicia's been pretty wrecked. Even though she's a really great heel, it's like, well, now you're not going to be challenging for the title, and like Ash by Elegance and Heather by Elegance are the last two heels after Rosemary, I think, and that's pretty much it, unless you debut some new heels, or unless like Kylan King comes back or something like that. It's like, again, where are like all the people for everyone to feud with? Everyone's got to have a story. Everyone's got to have something to work with. I think, again, it's tough for me to say that he should 100% turn heel, because it's like tough to figure out, well, is Ryan Nemeth really turning on Nick Nemeth, or is like Ryan Nemeth and Nick Nemeth turning on Joe Hendry? Like, I don't know, that because that's really tough. It's really tough to figure that out, because it's like, what should be done? Like, what makes the most heat for Joe Hendry going forward? Because it doesn't really change that much if Ryan Nemeth turns heel on Nick Nemeth. It's like, well, what does that do to Joe, except for the fact that he already lost? So again, like, Ryan and Nick Nemeth turning on Joe kind of feels like, well, that's more heat. But like, still, you like, if Kazarian comes in to win the title, which I feel like he is going to, then it's like, well, that doesn't make sense for a double heel like Nick Nemeth to turn heel. It makes more sense for Ryan Nemeth to like betray his brother or whatever else or whatnot. But then it's like, well, like, how's he going to like move on from there to like, he can't obviously face Kazarian for the title. He's like, so you've got to be thinking, well, we've got to build Ryan Nemeth up to being a more major player as far as being a heel. If we're going to have him feud with Joe Hendry on a pay-per-view, like, you've already lost to Joe Hendry. So it's like, well, what's the point of him losing again to Joe Hendry unless there's a lot more behind it or whatever else? I don't think that there's like a lot there, and I think like you could have a lot more, because like you could make Ryan Nemeth into like the Dolph Ziggler 2.0 type thing. He's got that sort of personality of an early Dolph Ziggler, like arrogant, young, sort of, and steal your girlfriend type attitude, like. So I do feel like it doesn't make any sense in some forms for like, if you're going to have Kaz win it for a double turn, which is where I do feel like things are going. I do feel like Kaz is going to win it, because unless you're doing a double turn, then it's like there's no point in Kaz winning it. And it's like, well, what's Kaz going to do if he's not going to win it, or if he's not going to cash it in at some point? Like, maybe, I don't know. It's again so tough, because it's like, you've got to pay this thing off. You've got to pay this thing off. People have paid to see it, obviously, but it's not that, like, they're not just not paying it off because they're stupid and lol TNA makes stupid booking decisions. No, they're trying to, again, bring out every dollar that they can from the story. So, again, but again, you've got to keep things feeling like this is going somewhere. You can't just drop the ball on something or say, oh, we don't care anymore. No, we care, but we're just trying to get there. We're trying to get from A to B to C, to get back to A again or whatever else it is. We've got to put these obstacles in his path so that people feel like, damn, he had to go through all this shit and we had to keep believing and we had to keep believing and we had to keep believing, no matter what. And he finally did it, like Slammiversary or Bound for Glory or whatever else it is, and he finally won the title or whatever it was, So that's what they've got to keep up. They've got to keep this up until that point when Joe Hendry does finally win the title and does finally, like, make this thing happen. Like, this is the goal. It's like people don't really realize that. And then it's like, well, when are you going to get Kaz to cash it in? Like, or how are you going to get Kaz to cash it in otherwise? Because again, like, if you're turning Nick Nemeth heel, it, like, makes no sense for Kaz to have won it off of another heel in some instances. Like, unless he pins Joe, but that still feels a little bit awkward. Like, I don't think that makes any sense. As I said, I feel like if Ryan Nemeth, like, betrays his brother in some forms, in some fashions, or, turns his back on him and whatnot and that sort of thing, because he was like trying to, like, effectively interfere in the match in some form, in some fashion, and then it sort of falls apart or whatever else it is. And I think, like, again, having Ryan Nemeth having the heater, having JBL behind him, will make it more interesting. Like, and it's funny, actually, JBL's going to be on, I think, SmackDown this week, I think it is, or is it Raw next week? I'm not too sure. I know it's one of the shows, but I'm not too sure which one. I know it's soon. Anyway, so that's interesting because it's like it's just after Genesis, right? Because it's on, like, I think if it's on Raw, then it's on Monday, which is just after Genesis. So that's a bit weird. If it's on Friday, then it's like just before. No, wait. No, yes, no, confusion. No, because this upcoming Friday is the last week before. Right. So this is the go home show. Yeah. Next week is the Fallout show, right? 23rd. Where are we? Trying to see. Yeah, 23rd. So next week is the Fallout show. So it has to be either this Friday or it has to be next Monday, which is after Genesis, which is really weird if it's after Genesis, because it's like, well, like, are they going to play into the fact that he just did stuff over in TNA? Like, maybe not. But this, like, if he's on the main roster, I actually said this before, where is he technically a TNA signed talent, or is this like the first instance of a WWE main roster talent of some description doing a crossover? That's going to be kind of interesting, because now you've kind of got this TNA contracted wrestler, or is it a WWE contracted wrestler in TNA? Like, he's going to be on one of the main shows. And it's like, if it's before the 23rd, that would be saying to me that, again, that's promotion for the 23rd. So you've got to kind of tune in to see if they're actually following that up. Hey, well, what's going on with you and whatnot in TNA? Oh, you better turn into the 23rd for that, Muggle, type thing. So that'd be interesting. That would help with, again, that kind of promotion. So that makes some amount of sense. So whichever way it does go, that does seem to, put the pieces together, kind of, for them to be, for the first time ever, really promoting what TNA is kind of doing on the main roster. So we'll wait and see where we're at. I've already talked about it a little bit, but I guess we will wait until this week's episode fully to talk more about the final push to Genesis. And then we'll have to have a look and see what happens at Genesis, and we'll have to see what happens, coming out of that live broadcast. So, yeah, it will be an interesting time. Guys, I hope you're all ready for Genesis, whether you've got your tickets ready to go to the show, if you can, or if not, hopefully you can buy it on pay-per-view. I know there's only a few ringside, well, not directly ringside, but ringside seats available. And there's quite a few general admission tickets left, but yes, not a huge amount in the general ringside area. So yes, hopefully we can get, like they've already said that it's outsold Hard to Kill last year, which I don't think would have been too hard, honestly. Like, we know that Slammiversary, Genesis, and I think another show, I think Rebellion it was, that also sold out above what Hard to Kill did last year. So it's questioning whether they've sold out as much as Rebellion, Slammiversary, or Bound for Glory, those bigger events. And they sold out every other show, live pay-per-view or live event they had this year, last year as well now. So yeah, I'm still getting used to the new year, guys, so sorry. But especially since some of these things are recorded before the end of the year and whatnot. So yeah, but it is the way it is, and hopefully we can make this happen, because that's the problem. It's like a very prolonged push, and we've like for the last 6 years we've been trying to push things, and finally we're getting something happening. So that's been the push, and it's always been the push. It's been the push since day one, but things go in ebbs and flows in some ways as well. So we're in that push just to get, a spot somewhere at the table, hopefully, and we'll see if we can get that. But I do feel like, now having thought through this, I have come to the conclusion, but it is hard to say that it's not completely infeasible just to say, well, let's go a different direction. Let's, turn Nick Nemeth heel. Let's go down this rabbit hole for a few months as well, where he's heel, Ryan Nemeth's heel. We have more challenges for Nick Nemeth, like Santana, and that sort of thing. And then we'll go from there. We'll go down this rabbit hole for a little while until Slammiversary. But then it's again, it starts to feel like, well, when are you going to have Kazarian cash in? He has to cash it in before Bound for Glory next year. If Joe Hendry's going to win the title, if you're going to tie the title up until Slammiversary, it's a bit well, that doesn't make any sense. Again, if you're going to put the title on, if you're going to keep the title on Nick Nemeth at this point, his title run will be very, very long. I feel like that's okay, but it starts to becoming a little bit much, especially if he's not turning heel. But if you suddenly say, let's put it on Kaz and let's give him the title for 6 months or whatever it is, it sort of like skips the shark, so to speak. Not like literally, not that we've skipped the shark type metaphor. No, we're skipping the Joe Hendry kind of thing. He didn't win, he didn't lose, or maybe he did, but it was because of the cash in and because of other chaos. So now the first, like, if you're like, and if Kaz is winning it, you've kind of got to have Nick Nemeth be the babyface in that like rematch. Like, that's going to be like probably the first match that Kaz has with somebody going along here is a rematch with Nick Nemeth. So then you have to go from there. You have to like start saying, well, right, who's Kazarian gonna face after that? Well, either Joe Hendry or Santana, and it's got to be Santana because, well, we've got to save Joe Hendry for a bigger event, and well, that means that sacrifice is probably Nick Nemeth against Kaz for the title. Rebellion's probably Santana versus Kaz for the title. Slammiversary then is probably Kaz versus Joe Hendry for the title, and that's the point at which I think that Joe Hendry can and probably will win it. That's where I feel like it would make some amount of sense to do it. Not the best, not 100%, but still it would make some amount of sense. And then, I don't know what you're going to exactly do, because then I don't know what show, like, there's no major show between Slammiversary and Bound for Glory, so then you're talking about Bound for Glory, and then you're basically talking about end of the year and more minor shows anyway, until next year. So, yeah, but that's the way I feel like it could go. So those have been my thoughts on this, because I was really kind of like going, would this make sense? What do you, like, I've got to work through this. I've got to think through this, and it really takes a lot of brain power to kind of think through these things and kind of analyze these things and think, well, what's the upside? What's the downside? Why would this work, or why would this not work? What position does that put this person in if they're in a rematch? Well, now you have two heels going up against each other. It doesn't make any sense. Or you've got a heel winning against another heel, so that doesn't make it doesn't make really any sense. No one's really got a good horse in that fight. It's like, if you turn Nick Nemeth heel, you could still do some of these things, but it doesn't make as much sense as just saying, well, let's put the title on Kaz, do something different for 6 months, and then, we can still put Nick Nemeth near the top of the card. We can, or whatever, or maybe, you could say, well, he's so distracted with Ryan Nemeth, and Ryan Nemeth costs him his shot, and then they have their match at Slammiversary, or Rebellion, or whatever else it is. Actually, that would make more sense, because that would be, that would make more sense. Then you have, you've got to have something for Ryan Nemeth at Slammiversary, and you've got to have something for Santana, so you could have Santana and Ryan Nemeth at Slammiversary. So that would kind of fit these things together, so that, everyone's kind of doing something. Everyone's got a dance partner, everyone's got a story and something to feud with, and some way to get towards the title. It's sad for Santana, because he's got, and same with Steve Macklin. It's like, what's he doing? He's just being pushed into a tag team with Eric Young now. So it's again, maybe he should turn heel. I don't know. But again, it's one of those things. Same with Callahan. I don't think that he's in the position that he probably should be. He should just be another guy that's challenging for the title all the friggin' time, here, there, and everywhere. You know, these guys are your semi-main eventers or your main eventers. So they should be in that position. Like, they should be the gatekeepers of that semi-main event or main event, where you've got your Ace Austins and your other people trying to, claw their way in. But these guys are always kind of getting the big time shots. But yeah, that's how I would present them, or try to present them anyway. But that's just me. Anyway, guys, hope you have enjoyed this one. Hope you'll join me again in another one.